So I'm going to do my best to give a simple introduction to the BFO ontology of roles. I will try and illustrate how that works from the engineering point of view, and then you can try and criticize it.
Okay.
So we have first of all the basic distinction in BFO between continuance and occurrence, and we distinguish between independent continuance and specifically dependent continuant, and then occurrence for our present purposes are mainly processes. And then there are two kinds of specifically dependent continuants. There are qualities, and quality is very general for BFO, and for engineering purposes it includes all of geometry, so all shapes. It includes chemical constitution, it includes temperature, it includes the color of a thing, it includes the physical qualities of the thing, specific gravity and so forth, if that's relevant, and so forth.
Dimensions, so geometry.
A brief summary would be to say that qualities include everything that's measurable. And then, on the other hand, we have what is called realizables. Realizable, specifically dependent continuance. And the two main families of realizables are roles and dispositions. And I'll say a little bit about dispositions first. So dispositions are, well, no, realizables are different from qualities in the sense that realizables are powers or potentials or tendencies or possibilities. They're not actualities. Qualities are always actualities. And what that means is that you can have a tendency to go bald or a tendency to rust, and you're not actually rusting because the tendency is blocked by some atmospheric conditions. But if you take away those atmospheric conditions, you will start to rust.
Yeah.
And one important kind of disposition is a function. So the function of this machine is to drill, and the machine still has that function even if it's switched off. So that's why a function is a realizable. And but dispositions and functions, therefore, are dependent upon the physical constitution of the bearer. So you have the disposition to go bald because of the physical constitution of your body, and the machine has the function to drill because that's what it was made for, and that's how it's physically organized.
So in this example, is it function to drill or function to make hole?
A function to drill, but I think that's
probably up to me.
It's probably up to you in the end.
Because we did with Arco, we connected different 15-minute blocks.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Good. So now the difference between roles and dispositions is that roles are not grounded in the physics of the bearer. So all specifically dependent continuants have an independent continuant bearer, or more than one in principle. Qualities, for instance, shapes are always shapes of certain things. And similarly, all realizables have an independent continuant bearer. And in the case of the drilling machine, it's the machine itself which has this function. In the case of your going bald, it's you that has this disposition. And now roles are not dependent on the physics of the bearer. So if I elect you to be the chief architect of the drilling ontology, and if I have the authority to do that, you acquire the role immediately. You don't have to change your physics or your constitution in any way. You will when you start exercising it because you'll learn all about drills. But the role comes with this social invitation.
Context?
Context, so that you may have the role of being the first speaker because you happen to sit in the first chair.
Yeah.
So now let's think about machines and engineering. Where do we have roles in the kind of framework that you just described, which has the manufacturing process, it has the input and the output, and it has the machine, the tool, and so forth.
Yeah.
I think the first obvious case is the operator. Now we have what we have so far. So this is going to look like this. So we have operator, and every operator, let's assume, is a human being. So it might be that we have robot operators, but we won't worry about that. We'll just assume, for the sake of this argument, that we have an is-a relation between operator and human being. Now, we also have an is-a relation between child and human being. Every child is a human being. Again, for the sake of argument, we don't think about children of monkeys and so forth. Now, these are two quite different kinds of is-a relations. Mm-hmm. And let's take another example. Okay. So let's take actually, let's take a completely different example so I can make my point more carefully. So we have mammal. We have human being. We have operator. This is an is-a relation. In the very strong sense, every human being is a mammal, but at every time when the human being exists, it's a mammal. Yeah. And if it ceases to be a mammal, then it ceases to exist. Mm-hmm. Those conditions are not met by operator, because the operator used to be a child and so forth.
In the afternoon, he or she goes home.
We can indeed make an is-a assertion, but it's a quite different kind of is-a assertion. And now what we say is that this is an asserted is-a, which means it's an is-a in the reference ontology, which captures the joints of reality, the way nature is, where this is an inferred is-a. And what that means is that there's something else in the ontology which allows us to infer it, but it doesn't belong to the reference ontology. Now, what is it that we use to infer it? Well, this is where roles come into play. So we have specifically dependent continuant, and then we have role, and then we have operator role. Now, an operator role is a role which some human being has at a certain time when they are in the position of being an operator. Now, whether that's defined as a work, a factory status, which you have from a certain point in time and you still have it when you're asleep, or whether it's defined as a spatial relationship to a machine where you're actually operating the machine, doesn't matter. We just have two different terms, operator status and operator action or something, active operator or something like that. And then we say, well, an operator is a defined class. And what we really mean by operator is a human being that has the operator role. And this is the assertive class.
And then becomes inferred.
then we can infer from the fact that every operator is defined as a human being with an operator role, that this class is a child of this class, even though it's not in the reference ontology. This, however, is in the reference ontology, because every operator role is a role at every point when it exists. And if it ceases to be a role, it ceases to exist.
So if we say, if I say that me, DNS, is human being,
Yeah.
and we say DNS has operator role.
If you had it now, yeah.
If it has operator role,
it has operator role.
Operator role.
Yeah.
If we say that, then we can infer that DNS is operator.
Exactly.
So we don't need to assert this one.
No.
As soon as we get,
We can infer it, and that's what the reasoners do. The reasoners will infer the defined classes,
yeah,
and then create an inferred hierarchy. And the inferred hierarchy is not the official hierarchy in the ontology.
so we do have to have again a little bit from coming into tool perspective, maybe from OWL. So we have to say that operator is a human being that has the operator role.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We don't
That's what we do.
You just have kind of as axiom specify that. And
okay, so I think now we can just discuss what kinds of
so, but then this
roles we need.
discussion in previous segments actually lends itself to just instead of struggling with this, what is machine, what is tool, what's operator, what's their purpose in every manufacturing process, we define roles.
Well, no. So now we have to be more careful. So a machine is a machine at all times at which it exists.
I know, but for process,
there's no need for a role for machine. That's the difference between machine and operator. An operator is what is called a stage sorter, which means it sorts entities according to stages in their existence.
yeah.
Where a machine is not a stage sorter, even if it's broken, it's still a machine. As soon as it exists, it's a machine, and until it's destroyed, it's a machine. And there is, and in this respect, it's
I know. I'm not talking about machine as a role. I was talking. We specified there are three purposes in every manufacturing process.
Yes.
Somebody or something gives me quality or shape.
Yeah.
Somebody gives me power or energy.
Yeah.
Somebody constrains me.
Yeah.
So these three can be defined as the roles,
Yeah.
which can be satisfied by operators, by tools, by machines, depending what is that we have. I see this machine is not machine. If I'm considering, is it machine? If I consider, I change context. So I'm using my drilling machine to make holes in my plate.
So let's suppose that you're using
very same object. I am making a different factory. Is it machine?
So let's take a simpler example. Supposing you have a machine which is box shaped in a steel box. We use the box as our support. So we're not using it for its purpose, we're using it. So we are using this box to be a support. Then the box is playing a support role.
Yes.
That is a good use of role. And that's because a machine could, in principle, also be used for other. It could play other roles. Now, the question is whether that is the appropriate intuition to bring to bear on your specification of the three axes of the definition of manufacturing process, which you associated with the kind of process, the input, and the output. We have these three axes, which are quality, power, and constraint. So fixture, quality, power, and fixture. And I think probably it is. So we'd have to specify these names more carefully. So qualities are not roles. They're completely separate from each other. But
I agree with that.
Providing, so Actually, I think it is more complicated. So let's take fixture first of all. Whether something is performing as fixture for a certain manufacturing operation in a certain factory is a role. But if the manufacturing process needs a certain kind of clamp, and if that clamp is made to be that particular kind of fixture, then it's not a role, it's a function. And the function means that it's a representation or it's a consequence of its physics. It was built and of its being.
Yeah, it is function. Yes, I agree.
It's designed and built to do just this one thing. But it's playing the fixture role for this operation is indeed a role.
Yeah.
So we have what holds of the fixture in and of itself, and then we have what holds of the fixture in regard to this particular process.
Yes.
And now, similarly for the power component, the energy component.
Yes.
So if you're using your machine, which is designed to transmit energy, if it's switched off and you're just using it as a fixture, then it doesn't have the energy role, even though it keeps its energy function. And then if you're using the machine to determine the shape, so your tool, if you have a tool which was designed as a tool to create a hole of a certain size, then that's the function of the tool.
Yes.
Because that's all it does. This is just a drill bit, I take it. Where if you're using that tool in a specific context as some kind of support, which I imagine you might do.
You could, yeah.
The machine is not balanced evenly, so you put this drill bit under it to give it balance. Then that's a special role.
Yeah.
But I think roles in every case that I just described are being used because we're doing something which is not really planned. So we didn't plan to use that machine to be the support for an icing of a cake.
Yeah. So essentially, in planned operation, we do have a functions. Each of these objects has a function that satisfies the process.
Exactly.
But in some standard, unexpected situations, just to get by, we may use these objects in different roles, which is different from their function.
But providing we're using them to exercise their function, the role dimension is not going to play. It's not going to make much.
So going back with this operator, we do have a trouble. I think so, because operators are versatile. Human beings are smart; they can do many different things.
Yeah, so that's precisely allowed by the role.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So roles are always optional. In other words, you can always lose your role. Without changing in any way. Where functions are always necessary, you can't change your function.
So, what is function of human being?
Human beings don't. But that's my view. BFO is neutral on that question. In fact, BFO is neutral.
Okay, another question: does every object or every class of artifact has to have function?
I think that artifacts, by definition, are designed in order to perform a certain kind of function.
Yeah.
Now, we could talk about capability.
Hold on, there is one thing. So, since human is not artifact, is not built by other humans, it doesn't have function.
So, your heart has a function.
I know.
Your digestive system has a function. Your lungs have a function.
But human itself doesn't have, or himself.
As I say, I think not. Ex officio, I am neutral on that question. But I certainly think that hearts have functions. And that's because evolution selected for an entity which could perform the blood pumping through the organism function. And that's the definition of a function, what you were selected or designed to do.